And we are live back from Virginia International Raceway. This is Inside the SCCA, presented by Goodyear Racing Tires and Vintage Racers for Rescues. Brian Bielanski here with Gregg, Ginsberg, and sometimes I
Wow.
think we should talk about the races in reverse order.
Yeah, well, we've done that in some cases. I think that's how we led off yesterday's lunch break. But let me break out the big asterisk, I guess.
Yeah, we're going to get to that in a little bit here.
Yeah.
But let's go back to the start of the day. Let's
Sure.
give those. This will be good anticipation.
Yes.
So just to let you know that we're going to talk about an F production in GT2 a little bit later in the show. Yeah, if you were watching, you just saw the end of the GT2 race. Holy cow, that was one. We're going to have. We'll be talking about that for years. I think, right?
Yeah. I think we might be talking more about the interviews than the than the race. Well, actually, we'll talk about the racing.
Exactly.
But yeah, let's take a look at how we started the day off today, and that was super touring light, and I think that was the first surprise of the day, and really the win couldn't have gone to a better man. We had right out of the gate Joe Moser, who started on the outside of the front row, jumping to an early lead, motored past our pole sitter Danny Stain, and it only took a lap or so, and Mr. Moser's King Motorsports Honda CRX had some mechanical issues. Danny Stain in the Ocean Machinery Nelson OPM Autosports MX-5 went to the lead. And well, it just got more and more interesting from there. As I don't think we're going to go too far into every little bit of the race, but let's just say that as Danny Stain, for the second time here at Virginia International Raceway, started to put in those hero laps,
Exactly.
as he calls them, he went out to a tremendous lead and an early battle between Greg Malloy and Trevor Desjardins. Malloy in the Honda CRX, the function informed CRX, the motion control suspension Integra of Desjardins, really going at it. And then they started to break up a little while. But speaking of breaking up,
Breaking up is hard to do, I'm told.
it is, and unfortunately, I think we've seen today, and this is going to be, I think, a recurring theme for this morning's races as we talk about them: fragile Honda Acura transmissions.
Okay.
Well, not actually fragile Honda Acura transmissions, just fragile transmissions.
Period. Yeah, exactly.
Period, because Danny Stain, towards the end of the race, lost third gear, basically gave him no drive out of some of the slower corners here, gave him no drive out of turns 1 and 2, gave him no drive out of Oak Tree onto the long back straight, gave him very little drive down onto the front straight as well. And that allowed Greg Malloy to not so slowly, but certainly surely close things down on our 3-time STL champion. And it allowed Greg Malloy to get past Danny Stain with a lap to go and take his very first national championship. Stain managed to hold on, and he was in a car that certainly had so much more straight line speed than Malloy's CRX. He almost got the win there at the end, but has to settle for second. And I think for Danny, as he said with the interviews, racing can be an evil mistress sometimes.
Yes.
Sometimes it works for you, sometimes it doesn't. But we're all lucky to be here and racing instead of doing something else. So not I think somewhat disappointing weekend for Danny, 2 days in a row. Having not won from the pole, but we know he'll be back next year. Trevor Desjardins in his Acura Integra, starting fourth, finishing on the last step of the podium and taking that silver medal. Max Ski finishing fourth. Alan Cross, who started seventh today, works his way up to fifth. Great finish for him.
And today's a good example. Nothing's going to be made easy this weekend.
No.
We've got these same off and on wet, dry, damp, dry kind of conditions, and parts of the racetrack are wet. Parts of the racetrack are dry. It's really hard to make decisions on what tire to choose. It's also hard to make decisions on what you're going to do from lap to lap to lap, because you don't know where it's going to be wet, where it's not going to be wet.
Yeah.
And now I'm looking out the window, and the wind's starting to kick up for the afternoon. So, obviously today and yesterday, much better than we've had over the last than on Friday. But we haven't had a day where there weren't challenging weather conditions, and we're not going to before the end of today. So,
All
yeah, so that's basically what's going on there. Let's move on now to a sedan.
Okay, and this is, as you were saying, now this was the first race that we had changeable conditions. We had most of the drivers go out, I believe, on slicks, on dry tires, different tire widths depending on the chassis, and they started to find, first off, they found, as our STL drivers did, what happens when that Tide detergent gets put down on a portion of the course, because it was down over by turns 11 and 12 over on the south end of the course to try and clean up that oil from last night, and how the track can change. And it went from being a dry track. Within a few moments of the green flag flying, the mist started coming down, and it was just a light mist, no real raindrops or anything, but it was enough by the end of this race to make the course somewhat treacherous. And so early on, we had Kurt Resitano, who was our pole sitter. We had Greg Eaton, both of them battling side by side, and on lap one coming out of South Bend, Resitano got a bit of the curb. The two of them got together as Greg Eaton, who was looking for his third national championship, he was our champion back here in 2019, went off driver's left. Resitano went off driver's right. Resitano thought he broke something and just sat there in the grass for a few moments before he got back underway, and that allowed Danny Richardson in his Chevy Camaro, in the Hoosier Auto Gear Hayworth Anze suspension Camaro, and Clark Camburn to take over first and second. And it didn't last long, because Danny Richardson, and he has, over the past couple of years, seemed to have one of the more fragile cars in the class. It's one of the third gen, very early 80s Chevy Camaros, and just did not hold up to the pressure, I guess. He came down into turn one in the lead one lap. The next time he comes down with Clark Camburn jumping to the inside, he gets on the throttle, something let go.
Sure.
And he ended up watching, where his car ended up watching the rest of the race from the grass over by turn two. Clark Camburn in that big Dodge Challenger takes the lead, but he has trouble as the track gets wet. He goes off at turn one a couple laps later, and that puts Greg Eaton back up into the lead as the track got more and more wet.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so eventually Greg Eaton, he saw his lead start to disappear towards the end of the race as Camburn started closing things up. Resitano, who had fallen almost out of the top 10, worked his way back up to third. And I should say, if there was at least one more lap, if this was a 16 lap and not a 15 lap race, it would have been three cars likely side by side going down the front straight, battling for the win. It was that close.
You're talking like a guy who's finished second or a guy who produces races.
Yes.
Because you always want the best finish at the end, or if you're in second, you always want one more lap.
We were one lap away from getting it. So Greg Eaton, he started on the outside of the front row. He got his third national championship. Clark Camburn started fourth today. He finished second. Resitano worked, as I said, all the way back up to third. Tom West, who started sixth in his Cadillac, finished in fifth, or probably in fourth, and then Andy McDermott, who went off on the very first lap, off at Hog Pen. He worked his way all the way back up to fifth position. It was a great recovery run for him.
It was a great race, and it's all of these races have led to some really emotional Victory Lane interviews afterwards, and the two races we've got coming up that we're going to talk about are not excluded from that. But what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break.
Okay.
And then when we come back, we're going to talk about F production and GT2. And we've got a whole bunch of other good stuff coming. So let's do that. We'll be right back. This is Inside the SCCA, brought to you by Goodyear Racing Tires and Vintage Racers for Rescues. Decades of sports car racing success comes from Goodyear Racing Tires' dedication to grassroots motorsports. Too many trophies and championships to count, and a commitment to continuing that tradition fuels continued tire development. From the professional levels of motorsports to the pinnacle of amateur racing in the SCCA, Goodyear Racing Tires are made for winning trophies. Follow @RaceGoodyear on Facebook or scan the QR code. Goodyear Racing is more driven.
Sentinel by Candelaria Racing Products is a comprehensive motorsports video system. incorporating live streaming, local recording, picture-in-picture, flag status, leaderboards, data overlays, and more. Perfect for endurance racing, sprint racing, and HPDE, Sentinel includes everything you need to get started. With the ability to control the live feed from the cloud, and GPS Auto Start will never miss an on-track moment. What are you waiting for? Get your Sentinel today.
Welcome back inside the SCCA, and got a lot of stuff going on here.
Oh, yes,
You
we
know,
do.
it is funny. The paddock is kind of cleared out. We've got two-thirds of our races done. A lot of folks have already headed home, waterlogged and damp and moist. I hate that word.
Yep.
But they're going to be drying out their equipment and their awnings for the next 6 months, waiting to go back and do it again.
Yeah.
But and today has been no exception. We can show real quick, and it's really interesting. The radar doesn't show like there's a lot of rain, but it's definitely there.
It's overcast. It's foggy. It's as we said, we've had mist throughout the weekend, and it just doesn't look all that accurate.
It's been good. Actually, I put that up, but I didn't actually put it on the screen. So there's what the radar looks like right now. It doesn't look like much is going on, but it is absolutely kind of wet out there. So we will do about that. So now we've got the two. So far, I'm going to guess the most competitive races of the morning. They all came down to last lap passes for the win.
Yeah.
And one is somewhat expected, I think, or not expected, but no surprise with our winner there.
Well, there was definitely a surprise at the end.
Yeah.
Let's look at F production, where Eric Prill, who was your pole sitter, took the win, and with a number of laps left to go, maybe not what we expected. As we talked about in American Sedan, how the track had gone from dry to wet. The majority of our F production field went out on intermediate tires. Matter of fact, I got word from some of my spies that there were only 2 drivers that had gone out on dry weather tires. One of them on DOT Spec Miata tires, and actually did quite well. He finished in 7th. But this was a race where many of the drivers had issues keeping their car on track from the outset in this race. Right on the very first lap and in the first corners, we had Ken Kennard sneak underneath our pole sitter, Eric Prill. Eric Prill looked to be driving, and we had Eric in last night, and he talked about, how he likes to be raced, and we could see that very good. He had spidey sense. I mean, he knew what was going on around him, and he was always, when he saw cars trying to push up to the inside, he was very late to turn in the corners.
Absolutely.
He was going to ensure that there wasn't any contact, and Kennard came up underneath him, rocketed to the front, and as they came through turn 3, Kennard went off track through the wet grass into the tire wall, managed to continue, but that escalated Prill into the lead, and 2 laps later, Prill was off at turn 3, was able to avoid the tire wall, thankfully for him, and so then Charlie Campbell, who finished second to Prill here back in 2019, and I think I led off with our last show about how I thought that was probably the best race of the 2019 runoffs here. Charlie Campbell led a great race, but he continued to have issues with grip and finding the driest place on track. He had a huge tank slapper coming out of South Bend, where Kevin Ruck, who was running right behind him, was able to sneak by,
Right,
and then
exactly.
Campbell shot right underneath him, going into turn 11 and Oak Tree to take the lead back. But then we saw Campbell, perhaps his most problematic series of corners were turns 14, the very top of the roller coaster, and then starting to come down through 15 and 16. And he made it very clear during the interviews, he never left the track surface, but there were multiple times where the front of his car wasn't pointing straight ahead.
And where you normally would have it pointing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that allowed Kevin Ruck to, with that front-wheel drive Acura Integra, 2-time national champion, jump to the lead. And it looked like Ruck had things under control until about 4 laps remaining in the race. And all of a sudden, you could sense that something was wrong as Prill, as Charlie Campbell, and also Ken Kennard, who had a couple of offs, not just that one, but
Right,
he'd
right.
gone around a couple of times, but was by far the fastest car on track, as they were all starting to knock anywhere between 2 and 3 seconds a lap out of Kevin Ruck's lead.
Exactly.
And
Yep.
and with just 1 lap to go, they came up on some slower traffic. Ruck did not get a good run out of Oak Tree,
And Eric did.
and Eric did, and Eric motored right by him. Again, Eric had made up probably close to 8 seconds
Right.
in a couple of laps. Ruck did everything he could to hold off Charlie Campbell, who once again had issues up at the top of the roller coaster. And so Ruck did manage to bring the car home second. He was right on Pearl's rear end coming out of Hog Pen, but that Jesse Prather motor had been so much stronger all week long in a straight line than what Kevin Ruck was able to do. He just could not get back around Prill. So Prill taking his 3rd national
Right.
championship. And as he mentioned, this was his 20th runoffs. It was his 100th race behind the wheel of that number 7 Maxon's Fight Mazda Miata. And apparently this was, you never say never, but
Right.
this appears to have been the swan song for Eric Prill at the runoffs.
Well, and I don't know if it's a swan song as much as it's a break.
And
No,
that's
he
how,
didn't
and
say
that's
it
how
wasn't
he said.
he said it wasn't his last runoff. He said he was taking a break.
Exactly.
I find it interesting though. He sat with us yesterday.
Yeah.
Did not tell us that.
Of course
Did not allude to that. So my question is this: had he not won today, and had he finished second so close,
Would we see him next year?
would he have made that announcement? It sounds as though he was
Maybe.
pretty adamant that
Yeah.
was going to be what he was going to do.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, and one of the things that they said on the broadcast, which I thought was really kind of very interesting, is that he drove like a guy who knew he was getting ready to take a break. It was calculated.
Yes.
He wasn't doing anything crazy at the start, and that's why it's all about.
And he wasn't doing anything crazy at the end either. Yeah.
Exactly. He went out with the situation, and it made me feel like he was going to go out being proud of how he drove that last race,
Yeah.
regardless of what the finish was. And thankfully for him, it was a first place finish.
It was a win, and you have to feel somewhat gutted for Kevin Ruck.
Absolutely.
He is a 2-time national champion, but last year, as the race very quickly went from dry to wet at Indianapolis, he made the wrong tire choice, and he was one of the favorites to win, and unfortunately for him, couldn't make a run at it. And Cliff Ira, in another front-wheel drive car, took the win. 2 years ago at Road America, he broke while really in contention for the race. And again, many years, and it sounds like Ruck had some transmission issues. That's why I said originally. I said,
Right.
"Oh, the story is accurate transmissions," but
Sure.
no, it's just transmissions, as it sounded like he may have only had 1 out of 5 gears remaining in that
Wow.
gearbox at the end of this race. So and I went over to Victory Circle to hear his interview there. He was very proud of his run,
Sure.
but you could tell he was
Well,
very dejected.
and it's hard to be, second place is tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially when you were leading late, and really thought you had a chance to win, and you have an issue that's kind of beyond your control. So, he'll feel better about this tomorrow
Yeah.
or next week, and
he
be back again.
And he had a spectacular run. He put on a nice little drift clinic coming through turn 3
Right.
about midway through the race. But other than that, he is one driver that ran close to the flawless race.
Right.
And unfortunately, sometimes you can't control whether the equipment stays underneath you or not.
Right.
So,
So, F production. I've lost all control of my brain. It's been a long 3 days, and
It has.
we're having a good time. But F production, exciting without real controversy.
no.
Not quite the same can be said for GT2.
Well, and that controversy didn't come until there were 3 corners or 4 corners left in this race.
Exactly.
Early on, so as the weather conditions were changing,
Right.
the majority of this field went out on wet tires, and very early on the pace lap, as a matter of fact, we had a few different drivers actually come down the pit lane and make tire changes before the green flag actually came out. I think we had Jared Odrick in his Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car, who started in 12th, come down the pit lane. I think we also had Tim Kesman, who started 5th in the Fall Line Motorsports Lemons of Love 991 GT3 Cup car, come down the pit lane. But our pole sitter and driver on the outside of the front row, Andrew Aquilante out of Chester Springs in the Phoenix Performance Chevy Corvette, Danny Bender in his TA2 Chevy Camaro. They were on intermediates,
Right.
and they went out and opened up a pretty substantial lead, the two of them, but they never were separated by maybe more than 2 to 3 car lengths the entire way. And this is where you see the amazing mix of cars that are in GT2.
Right.
We had Aquilante in a production-based Chevy Corvette,
Correct.
ABS brakes,
Yep.
and you could see there where he was much better on the brakes than Bender was, who was in a tube frame TA2 car.
Exactly.
On tires that are commensurate for that
Sure.
class, and his braking zones were much more extended than what Aquilante had. And Aquilante had the measure of every time Bender would get by him on the back straight, Aquilante would be able to outbrake him going into the roller coaster.
And it was another one of those examples where everybody was tiptoeing.
Yes.
Even the
for the
people
most
with
part.
ABS, they had to be careful. Andrew Aquilante and a couple of the other cars, they had to be careful. And while they were better on the ABS, you put down the gas hard in a Corvette, you're going to step out on the backside.
Yeah.
So it's all good there. And as the changing conditions went on, and then we get to.
Before we get to the end,
right?
So we talked about Tim Kesman from Fall Line
Right.
coming in at the start of the race and changing tires. Well, Mark Bowden, it took him a couple of laps to realize this was not the right call. Comes down the pit lane, great shot of the air jacks, bringing the Porsche 911 Cup car up into the air. He goes to the dry tires, and he goes from the back of the pack and is running everybody down. He was the third fastest car on track. Aquilante and Bender still on those intermediates.
Right.
were carrying more pace than Bowden was, but Bowden worked his way all the way up into third, a distant third, but third, and it was a great strategy call
Exactly.
from the Fall Line guys. But especially those, if you saw the end of this
Sure.
race, it came down to a last ditch attempt going into the roller coaster, going around turn 14 and starting to head down the hill. As Aquilante, he left the smallest of gaps, and I might say that Aquilante ran. He is a master of car placement. He
Right.
came out of Oak Tree one lap, and he gave Danny Bender a car width and maybe a millimeter
Right.
driver's left on the back straight to try and get past him, and Bender backed out of it.
Right.
Because, well, frankly, there was nothing he was going to do. He was going to be pinned, and he would never be set up for the roller coaster. And so this time, going under braking and going in the 14, we could see that Aquilante, he gave Bender that car width and maybe a millimeter,
Yep.
maybe
It
less
was enough.
Yeah, I
was
think
enough.
so. They went in side by side, and from the camera angles that we have, we don't know if Aquilante came across his nose. We don't know if Bender washed. It looked like Bender was on the curbing
Right.
at the apex there.
Which is where you put your car.
Exactly, and but in the end, there wasn't enough for two of them there. There was contact, and Aquilante got straightened up because Bender continued on the throttle, came down the hill,
Right.
straightened him up, and that was all that Danny Bender needed
Well,
to cross the line in first.
and it almost looked like for just a short period of time that Aquilani was going to be able to kind of keep himself pinned to the front of that car and allow it to get to the next left-hand turn and still be on the inside and
Right.
go. But at some point in time, he had to get his car straight again and
he
go
had to
on.
get out of the throttle.
And what was interesting was, obviously Danny Bender then was, as we've had the screen up a couple of times, went on to take the win. We get to victory lane. Obviously, Danny Bender excited and elated as a national champion. Andrew Aquilante, not so much.
So much.
He was very
He's been very vocal all week.
Yeah.
He only got a couple clean laps in.
Right.
during the testing this week. And I think when we talked to Eric Pearl last night, as we heard, some people were talked to, some changes were made during the week, and we've had very close but very clean racing all week. And Andrew has been known for being very matter of fact, I think is the best way to put it. And you could hear it in his voice, you could see it in his eyes that he wasn't happy with the way the race ended.
And the one point he made, and obviously not happy with how it ended. One point he made is he said that when you drive off when you run someone off by hitting him in the bumper.
Right.
I think when he goes back and watches the video, he will not be happy he lost. He won't be happy the way he lost, but he'll understand that he wasn't hit in the bumper. He was hit in the door.
Right.
Which means
he was hit in front of the door.
He was hit in front of his rear wheel, and which means Danny Bender was fairly alongside. It was not a bumper hit.
And I think he was hit just behind the front wheel.
I think we're probably right when you go look at it. So when you go back, and a lot of times when you have the benefit of a half hour to take a breath and 5 minutes to go look at the replay, and you see how it really played out, maybe the comments are a little bit different. Still not happy it came in second.
And he still may have a case, and we'll find out. This is one of those ones where we may have to put that asterisk up there.
Well, we always put down at the bottom of these, it says provisional race results. I'm sure as heck that there'll be a very close look at that.
Sure.
Maybe even a protest. And we may not know until late tonight whether or not this becomes official.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
But it was exciting.
Yes, it was.
All right, here's what we're going to do. We are going to come back. We're going to take a quick break again. And when we come back, we're going to 2 more times to see the twig.
Sure.
We're going to do that on the way back. Also, a little later in the show, we're going to talk about the afternoon races and all of that fun stuff. We've got plenty to come.
We do.
We're going back to racing at around 1 o'clock. So my guess is it will be done here around 12:55. But we will be back right after this break. Stay with us. Decades of sports car racing success comes from Goodyear Racing Tires' dedication to grassroots motorsports. Too many trophies and championships to count, and a commitment to continuing that tradition fuels continued tire development. From the professional levels of motorsports to the pinnacle of amateur racing in the SCCA, Goodyear Racing Tires are made for winning trophies. Follow @RaceGoodyear on Facebook or scan the QR code. Goodyear Racing is more driven. The Roadkeeper HD video and data logger was developed using our experience in motorsports, driving experiences, and beyond. It brings dual stream HD video combined with high-quality GPS data within reach of everyone at the track or on the road. Travinci Systems is an official Runoffs contingency sponsor, and it's not too late to sign up. On-site registration is available at the contingency desk in Tech. The Roadkeeper HD meets SCCA's requirements for forward-facing cameras. Take advantage of 2022 Runoffs pricing for the Roadkeeper HD, $324 plus shipping. That's $75 off. Offer is good through Christmas. Welcome back. Inside the SCCA, we've had a chance to take a breath after an exciting morning of racing, and we've got another exciting afternoon ahead of us.
Yes.
And but
4 more races.
Before we do that, we want to take one more time and show you guys a really fun feature that we've been running throughout the week here with our friends from Spark Virtual Racing. This is a pretty fun video that we produced earlier in the month, and they've been up here at the Runoffs. You're not here today with the weather forecast and with all of their expensive equipment. They decided it was time to.
They tempted fate once. They didn't want to do it twice.
And they made it through unscathed, and I love it. These guys are great. But anyway, take a look. This is the twig, and we will learn more about that in just a few minutes. A Rolex 24 at Daytona winner, a 2-time champion of the 12 Hours of Sebring, a member of the prestigious Road Racing Drivers Club, and the Twig. Today we find the Twig at Virginia International Raceway, driving an MX-5 Cup car. The Twig is driving Spark Virtual Racing's S600. The S600 is a full-on driver training simulator. Unlike entry-level sim systems, this rig moves across all 6 degrees of freedom, making it a truly full-motion system that provides maximum feedback from the car. At $80,000, it's the ultimate training tool, providing a seat-of-the-pants feel that's remarkably close to what you feel when you are at the track. Let's find out what kind of lap time the Twig can lay down at VIR.
So we are out here at Virginia International Raceway in a Global MX-5 car here on the Spark Virtual Racing Halo Motion Simulator here. Trying to go for a fast lap, and man, it's different, right? Driving this Spec Miata car, I can feel it really starting to understeer, move around a little bit more. You can feel the softness of this car, which is so much different than a lot of the cars that I'm used to driving, the stiffer aero platforms of modern GT3 cars. They don't slide around as much. They don't have the pendulum effect of a soft MX-5 car here. Alrighty, think about hog pen. Let's get that good run out of here. All that curve. Rolling down, flat, right at the compression. There we go. Car sliding. Woo, every inch of the road there. That was a pretty decent exit. Get ready for a fast lap here. So I need that late, aggressive break into turn 1, looking for that 3 board. The 5th gear. Take a breath. Getting ready. Eyes are in. Boom, 3 board. There we go. Down to the apex point, back to full throttle, let the car be free out of here, go, 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 don't scrub speed. Thinking about turn 3, I want to be nice and light on the brakes to roll in speed. Nice and light, there we go, get down to that apex point, hey, what do you know, there we go, use all the road, that was okay, not great, into turn 4. Ooh, a little late on that turn-in point, not great, that's going to cost me some lap time. Alright, I need to be flat from here on out, all the way to turn 10. Let's use this curve here to do a little release, a little early on the turn-in point, get it together, hands straight, and we're good. Whew, take a breath into the S's here. You need to be inch perfect, the first S, so that everything else is just working out for me. There we go, that was a good one. Jump this curve. Keep that right foot on the floor, right foot on the floor. Come on. Alrighty, nice and light on the brakes, roll speed into turn 10, there it goes, float, 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 use every inch of the road, nice. Braking just past the 2 board, boom, hard on the initial braking, there we go, release enough, roll speed, there we go. Back to flat the apex point, get the run out of here onto the back straightaway. Could have used a little bit more speed through Oak Tree, but my exit was good, and that's my main priority here. Take a nice breath, down the back straightaway. Big brake zone coming up. I need to make sure I hit that apex point in turn 14, but I need to make sure I'm maximizing my brake pressure too. Nice and late on the brakes. Looking for that aero board. Let's go. Wham! Hard on the brakes. Get the car slowed down. Can I get it? No, too much speed, but I need to go, 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 go. Don't let it cost you. There we go. Alrighty, attack it through hog pen, turning in flat. Use this curve, light on the brakes again. Car rotates, boom, back to full throttle. Come on, car. Tell me I don't suck today with my lap time, please. And it's still not gonna be very fast. Come on, let's go. Come on. Well, that's a little bit better.
That is 2 minutes, 12 seconds, 91 seconds.
That's it.
If you're at home, jump on your sim rig. Load up a Mazda MX-5 Cup car at Virginia International Raceway and tell us who. First of all, tell us who you think it is. Jump on the Facebook and tell us who you think it is, and then I want to see people try to beat that time. So we're going to show this one more time next episode tonight, and then we will reveal at that point in time who the twig is. That's coming up this afternoon after our last races of the day, and we've got a ton of those to talk about here. And and I had fun running the rig as well. So let's go through real quick our national champions. We've got and if you want to go and hear us talk about all these races, all of our stuff is still up on YouTube.
Yeah.
It'll be there forever. So we're not going to go deep into these, but you can like and subscribe if you're watching on the Racing Network, or if you're watching on SCCA.com, or if you're watching on Racer.com. Show all of the folks some love because that's how we all get to be able to do a whole lot more of what we're doing here. So Friday, Formula 500, Sven De Vries, T1, Andrew Aquilani. So he didn't leave here this weekend empty-handed.
No.
Jonathan Kotek won the Formula 4 National Championship, and the gold medal in GT1 went to Thomas Herb.
Exactly. And then Jesse Prather taking the win in E-Production. Frank Futrell, his first in Spec Racer 4 Gen 3. Joe Moser might have had problems in STL today, but he goes home with the gold medal in STU. And then Jason Ott in in the hurricane.
Yes.
or,
Wow.
or the remnants of the hurricane taking the win Friday evening in T3.
Yeah, that was the worst conditions of the week so far.
Ever.
I don't think it'll get anywhere near that bad this afternoon, hopefully. But that was a crazy situation. All right, let's move on to Saturday's results. FX was Trevor Russell. Marshall Mast that was a great T4 race. He won the championship there. Peter Shadowin was your GTL national champion. The gold medal in Formula V goes to Brian Farnham. And another fantastic run for Nick Bruni.
Yeah,
we won't talk about that.
No, I'll break down again.
No.
Finished second last year at Indianapolis, took the win this year in a race that seemingly nobody wanted or could win, except Nick Bruni. And then right after lunch yesterday, Steve and Trone, if you were with us here this morning, we talked to Steve and so humble, and we didn't get a chance to talk about his victory lap, but I hope hopefully at some point we get
we'll talk about it tonight. But it was pretty amazing.
It was pretty amazing. Alex Mayer taking the win in Formula Atlantic after our pole sitter went off track on the very first lap. Chris Shaftsma, always the bridesmaid, finished second at Indianapolis in 2017 and 2021 last year. He comes home with his first national championship. Chip Romer, who was that driver who went off on the first lap in Formula Atlantic, gets some redemption, takes the win after making a tire change under full course caution conditions in Prototype 1, takes the win. And Kurt Resitano, a really masterful run to round out the day yesterday in Touring 2.
All right. And our last, again, today's champions, Greg Malloy in STL, Greg Eaton, and I thought we'd have to have another Greg in F Production, but it turned out to be Eric Prill, and because if you were driving in F Production, you would be a national champion.
Of course, yeah, that by name alone, obviously.
It's spelled,
obviously not
you
by
spelled
talent.
it wrong. So
2 G's.
Anyway, and
3
Danny,
G's, actually.
exactly. There you go. Danny Bender, we just talked about in GT2. So, all right. One more break, or actually 2 more breaks.
2 more breaks.
We got 1 more break right now. When we come back, we're going to talk about all of what's going to go on this afternoon. That's up next on Inside the SCCA, brought to you by Goodyear Racing Tires and Vintage Racers for Rescues. We'll do that next on Inside the SCCA. Vintage Racers for Rescues. Racers rescuing dogs and cats from high-kill rural shelters and high-risk situations. Virginia and North Carolina have the 3rd highest euthanasia rate in the U.S., and Vintage Racers for Rescues founders, Robin and Dave Handy, decided to do something about it. Vintage Racers for Rescues is a 501c3 charity that saves between 300 and 400 animals every year, nursing them back to health, finding foster homes, and eventually forever homes. VintageRacersForRescues.com. Use the QR code to find them on the web or to make a donation.
Corgi Sport is your one-stop shop for new and used mini parts and accessories. Whether it's driven on the street or on the racetrack, we have everything you need. From the small interior parts all the way to used and rebuilt motors. And with our sponsorship of the GPM race team, who travel to more than 30 tracks east of the Mississippi, we have a built-in delivery system that can save money on delivering large parts. Our line of Corgi Sport apparel celebrates the special bond between mini owners and their dogs. Mention this ad for a 10% discount at corgisport.com.
Racing for Heroes is proud to be a partner of Inside the SCCA. RFH is a nonprofit devoted to helping veterans suffering from the seen and unseen wounds of war through racing and our range of programs. RFH's programs include health and wellness, motorsports therapy, community outreach, education, and employment. Visit racingforheroes.org to learn more and find out how you can help. Cruise Associates is honored to have sponsored this message. Live from Virginia International Raceway for another 15 minutes or so before we go back to racing, and then we're back here this afternoon. And I'm Brian Bielanski. This is Gregg Ginsberg, and we're having a really awesome time bringing you all of this funness.
Yes.
A bucket full of funness with a big, huge vat of water.
Yes.
Anyway.
And a little tide.
and a little tide, apparently.
Yeah.
A little tide, apparently. So here's what we've got coming up this afternoon. Formula Continental starts right after we get going here. And it looks like it's going to start at 1 o'clock, so that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. Let me just double check here the start time. We'd gotten word from Race Control that Formula Continental, they're going to roll off track, actually, right at 1 o'clock. So we got it perfect.
GT3 this afternoon also. Formula Enterprises 2. That's going to be a really fun, one of my favorite classes.
Yes.
Lots of, I think it's 25 starters or so in all spec cars. So it's a real driver's class, and then prototype 2. We're going to give you all of the grids here on these right now. So. But you know what? I never put the schedule up for people to see. They were just looking at us.
Well, hopefully they're listening to our voice, and what they see isn't
So
important.
anyway, there's the schedule like we just talked about. And now we're going to go to our Formula Continental grid.
Yes. And we'll just walk through this pretty quickly here. Nolan Allaire finished third last year at Indianapolis, starting on the pole. Simon Sykes, our reigning national champion, sitting to his left, and you can't count out somebody like Tim Miner, who was our national champion here back in 2019. And frankly, you can't count out Michael Verisons, who is a many time Formula V national champion.
Kind of the elder statesman of this class.
He is. I mean, and he doesn't have a national championship yet in Formula Continental. He moved up after having taken the win in 2017 at Indianapolis and started to really focus on this program here. But it should be a very, very interesting race in Continental. So let's move over now to GT3. This will be the last of our GT classes. We just saw GT2 a few moments ago. We've had GT Light and GT1 over the last couple days. Jeff Durnell is your pole sitter here, and he was your 2019 national champion here at Virginia International Raceway. Your reigning champion, Troy Ermish, is starting right next to him on the outside of the front row. Right. They swapped positions multiple times as far as who during the week over 3 days of qualifying, who was the fastest, and so we've got the Roswell Outback Auto Mazda RX-7 today on the pole with Durnell behind the wheel. We've got Ermish in his Nissan 350Z, and not to be discounted is going to be Tony Ave, who we did see in his Acura RSX in GTL, and we'll see him here again in GT3, right. And then Michael Lewis in his Goodyear Mazda RX-7, again a car that we've already seen this week in GTL.
And Michael Lewis has had various little gremlins or niggles all week long. You know, a little bit of a problem here with the car, a little bit of a problem here with staying on the track, and a little of this and a little of that, and the car is certainly capable. The driver is certainly capable. Sure. You know, if he can put it all together, he could be right here in the mix at the end.
Exactly, and so I mean, this is a class made up of multiple national champions in the front couple of rows. Right. So we'll see how this plays out. I'm certainly not going to be playing prognosticator. I'm not Jimmy the Greek here, and I'm not gonna go out on a limb. Yes.
Exactly.
Joe, am I your Ed McMahon?
Exactly. Joe Christensen is going to start 5th. Tony Rivera will start 6th. Okay, let's head on over to FE2.
All right. So in FE2, as you said, I think this is going to be the race of the afternoon to watch, as we have 25 drivers who went out for qualifying. On the pole is Russ Turner, who finished 2nd in Spec Racer Ford earlier this week. We've got TJ Acker, who is a former national champion. He is going to start right next to him out of Bulldog Motorsports. And then Bailey Monette, who had high hopes of taking the win last year at Indianapolis. It was not to be, as Scott Reddick, may he rest in peace, took the national championship there. And Jason Conzo, after out of the New England region, in the Motion Dynamics car, after he finished one session without the nose cone on his car, but we'll see. He managed to recover from that, and he is starting 4th. Caleb Schrader, who I would definitely, again, I'm not putting money on anybody, but I would look to he and also Whitney Strickland, former Spec Racer Ford racer, to put in good showings. The other person, and maybe the dark horse, not on this list right here, starting 6th, Adam Jennerjohn, former Formula V racer, and has been incredibly strong all weekend. Paul Schneider as well, going to be starting with him on the outside of row 4.
All right, let's move on to Prototype 2. Now, I like this class because it's kind of, in my mind, the sexiest class out there. You know, they look like prototype cars. There are various lineages of cars in this class. Tim J. Jr. is one of our guys from out west, so we talk about him all of the time when we're doing our races out at Cal Club and Button Willow. And to have him on the pole here in conditions that aren't really terribly conducive for a West Coast SoCal driver necessarily is going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, and of course Tim Day, he took the win in 2018 in Sonoma. He finished finished off the podium here in 2019, but was your silver medalist at Road America 2 years ago, and he is your reigning national champion. Gregg Guyan, who was the winner in 2020, finished third last year, finished third back here in 2019 as well. So I'm sure he's hoping to, after a year off the top step of the podium, looking to repeat. And I think probably the man who is looking to make that big jump is Lucian Pancia, having finished second at Indianapolis last year, having finished second here in 2019. Of course, Lucian starting third today from the inside of row number 2, really looking for his first national championship.
Mike Rupert will start fourth. Robert Iverson.
And we'll have to see if Iverson is on track. His car had some fireball issues, I guess, on the last day of qualifying. I don't know if they've been able to get that car back together over the intervening 3 days, but again, very good run for Robert. And then Sherman Chao, who was it was great on the track walk on Monday evening. He was bump drafting a Tom O'Gorman and lefty Larry McLeod and myself through South Bend. Oh no, we were in the golf cart. He was on a bicycle.
Oh, nice.
So we know Sherman's got speed in anything he drives or rides.
That's that would have been a good opportunity to have a GoPro on the golf cart.
Yes.
Very nice. All right. So let's go through it one more time. Formula Continental at 1 o'clock, and these are time approximate. GT3 at 2, Formula Enterprises 2 at 3, Prototype 2 at 4, and of course, check back with us as we wrap up the whole week here. Runoffs After Dark should be around 4:45 or so.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do this. We're going to make our last break of this show, and when we come back, we will go through some thank yous.
Yeah.
Do some awards. We'll do all that right after this. You're listening to Inside the SCCA, brought to you by the good people at Goodyear Racing Tires and Vintage Racers for Rescues.
Yes.
We'll be right back. Decades of sports car racing success comes from Goodyear Racing Tires' dedication to grassroots motorsports. Too many trophies and championships to count, and a commitment to continuing that tradition fuels continued tire development. From the professional levels of motorsports to the pinnacle of amateur racing in the SCCA, Goodyear Racing Tires are made for winning trophies. Follow @Race Goodyear on Facebook or scan the QR code. Goodyear Racing is more driven. The Roadkeeper HD video and data logger was developed using our experience in motorsports, driving experiences, and beyond. It brings dual stream HD video combined with high-quality GPS data within reach of everyone at the track or on the road. Travinci Systems is an official Runoffs contingency sponsor, and it's not too late to sign up. On-site registration is available at the contingency desk in Tech. The Roadkeeper HD meets SCCA's requirements for forward-facing cameras. Take advantage of 2022 Runoffs pricing for the Roadkeeper HD, $324 plus shipping. That's $75 off. Offer is good through Christmas. And we are back here, getting ready to go back to racing action. It'll be cars on track here in about 12 minutes, and we're going to talk right up until the broadcast starts. I got to tell you, the coverage from the guys up in the booth and the camera people have been fantastic. And some of the best commentators that I've heard. We've got the best in the club. They
Greg
know the
Kramer,
people.
John Phippen, Tom O'Gorman, lefty Larry McLeod. I've had the opportunity to work with many of them over the years as I was on the Super Tour.
Yeah.
And consummate professionals, and they know this product.
And honestly, doing 26 races in 3 days is no easy task.
No.
From the technical standpoint as well as from the guys in the booth. So I thought the coverage has been fantastic, especially Greg Kramer's comment about Eric Pearl's family being at a wedding this weekend while he was here winning his 3rd championship. Folks, if you know racers and you want them at your wedding, don't plan your wedding on national championship weekend.
No.
So anyway, that's done. I'm done with that. Before we get on to some other stuff, SCCAgear.com. If you are not here and you want some runoffs, some one-offs swag, go to SCCAgear.com. All of that is there. If you are still here, and I'm sure there's some stuff left downstairs, you can run down there and check out the tent right here by the Pagoda Grill. And if you need some stuff, these were custom made for us. Greg, you can see it better with our awesome inside the SCCA logo and of course the Runoffs logo. They did this for us special. If you would like to do special stuff for your team, give Rick at shirts101.com an email, and he will set you up. And great people to work with. They're quick. They deliver what they promise, and I can't thank them enough for making us doing as good as possible to make us look good.
Right.
It's a tough mold of clay to start, at least for me. But anyway, we really appreciate all of that. Okay, so much stuff. We're giving away some awards this week.
We are.
Friday, we gave away our SCC inside the SCCA awards. Women on Track award went to Cameron Reed.
Right.
And our under 25 winner was Peter Norton.
Norton in e-production.
Our Perseverance Award was Chip Hare. And our Veterans Challenge Award went to Kara Berendt. So now we've got to talk about our awards for Saturday. And
yes.
We were very happy to give Stephen Trone his award live. Pictures on Facebook all over the place.
Our B-Spec National Champion, yes, winning our Veterans Award.
Chuck Matudis is our under 25 winner
Finishing
for yesterday.
second in Spec Miata yesterday.
Amy Miller was
Mills.
I'm sorry, Mills, and I crossed it out and I still said it. Amy Mills.
And an amazing run for Amy, made up 30 positions in the Spec Miata race yesterday.
Exactly.
And I might add, she made up 30 positions. She was not the hard charger of the race.
Yeah, it's true.
Which that tells you how difficult the conditions were for so many people there yesterday.
And yesterday's Perseverance Award goes to Stephanie Anderson. This is a great story.
Oh yeah, Stephanie Anderson coming into this weekend had a big shunt in her Mazda 2 B-Spec car, and big enough that you could see through the unibody. You open up the hatchback, you could see the pavement below. Her team from X Factor Racing, they actually brought another Mazda 2 caged, but completely bare, basically the equivalent of a body in white, I think, but had the cage in it already. Brand new crate motor from Mazda, all the accoutrements, headers, all the accessories that had to be placed on, all the wiring that had to be done. The suspension got moved over from the other car. It is still a titled and legal car in Texas, and they built a race car for Stephanie Anderson in the paddock this week. So I think this is as much for Stephanie as it is for the entire X Factor Racing team.
Absolutely. The Facebook post was pretty cool. It was a street car 2 weeks ago, and it's a race car this weekend.
Yes.
That's pretty remarkable. So congratulations to all those folks. They're all eligible now for our G-Dub Henderson 2022 Award of Excellence that we're going to give out tonight at the end of our final show. And the winner of that gets a really cool trophy. A really cool crystal thing, and they get
$25,000.
$2,500 Sentinel racing system. That's a data tracker, video, streaming. They do everything.
And if you've been watching the in-car video during today's broadcast from the runoffs, those are the Sentinel video systems. You can see how crystal clear those shots are.
And tonight we're going to show the opening lap in B-Spec from one of those systems. First of all, it's cool how the system works, but second of all, it was a crazy opening lap in B-Spec yesterday. So we're going to do all of that tonight as well, because we'll have a little bit more time on that show. All right, we've got just a minute or two left here, Mr. Ginsberg.
Yes.
What are your thoughts for what we're going to see this afternoon, as it looks like we're going to probably get some more rain as we get in deeper into the day? It's just kind of normal for us now, right?
Well, first off, I haven't heard any sirens, so I know nothing went down at the Victory Circle after the GT2 race. So. That's a good thing. Yeah, I mean, we looked at the map there. Pretty much all day long, we haven't seen much in the way of weather. You look now, there are those tiny little spots that pop up periodically over by VIR, but most of it is northwest of Alton, of Danville. But it's a much colder track, and the dampness that we have, because there is not nearly as much heat out, it's certainly not evaporating here. So we'll have to see how these drivers make do. I think the continuing story, as it has been almost every race day so far, is the constantly changing track and the need to be able to very quickly adjust to what is happening around your car lap after lap. And the people that do it best, they're going to be national champions.
Yeah, and I can only imagine we haven't had a non-exciting race so far in the last 2.5 days. So we've had a couple of races that didn't have a ton of cars in them, but most of the races have been just full of action, full of surprises, and I have no real reason to believe that that's not going to continue here.
No.
As we get ready to push ourselves here to what will be the final 4 championships. We've given away 22 gold medals.
Yes.
23, 24, 25. You see, I'm Polish. I have to count 22 gold medals. 4 more to
4
go.
more to go.
And
26
it's
total.
going to be very, very interesting to see. So that's going to do it for us. We're going back to live Raising Action. Switch on